Sup fools, how's it going? And welcome to another Tutorial Thursday, TD. And today we're gonna try to edit our drone operator out of our drone shots. Let's begin. I don't know if it happens to you a lot. It definitely does happen a lot to me. When I shoot a scene with my drone, me as a drone operator, I'm always kind of in the footage. On set, I always try to hide behind trees or somewhere, but sometimes it's inevitable. And sometimes you don't even see it after the fact. Like, you check the footage and then you see, oh damn, I'm there in the background, I'm here in the foreground, whatever, and now I have the problem, I need to remove this from the scene. So really there's two things you can do. Either, what I recommend is, if it's not too much trouble, go outside and shoot the scene again. Sometimes it's simple. If it's just like a scene of a street or something, just do it again. But sometimes you need to bring back the actors and set up the entire scene again. And then, of course, you don't want to do that. You would rather do that in post. So the software we're going to be using for that is After Effects. It's by Adobe, and no, that's not sponsored, but it could be. Who doesn't know what that is? After Effects is basically like Photoshop and Premiere, the editing software, in one. So basically it's a compositing software where you can add effects or you can put different layers on top of each other in video. So you can manipulate colors, pixels, all kinds of stuff. So the scenes we're working on today are from my short film Sword Art Online. I shot a couple months ago, and it's a great piece of cinema, but we have this one drone shot, actually two drone shots, where the drone operator accidentally ended up in the drone shot. So now I obviously didn't want to go back and shoot the scene again. I preferred removing that in post, and this is the scene before and after. So let's jump right in. What we have here is our scene. When I go through the footage, you see we are fighting, everything is perfect until... Who's that guy? Who is this little piece of shit? That's Jahim. Great guy, by the way. So we need to get him out of the shot. There's a few ways to do that. The easiest solution would be to... I hit S on the keyboard. It opens up the scale. All I do is just increase the scale by, let's say, 120. Voila, he's gone. Probably through the entire scene. Done. So that's it for this video. Just kidding. This is not our solution today. It could be the solution if you can compromise the pixels on the edges. Like this, for example, if that is like 6K footage and I'm gonna export in 4K, then it doesn't matter. But for tutorial's sake, I'm gonna teach you how to actually remove him without just cropping in. Cropping in is always a great solution, fast solution, but today we're actually gonna try to remove him out of the shot without cropping in. So what do? We first have to analyze our footage. The camera is going to the left, so it's circling around us. So I'm gonna go to the frame which shows most of the drone operator, which is right here. Now I'm gonna duplicate my footage, which is CTRL-D. Now you see I have 2 times the same footage. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna freeze frame the top layer, right click, and then time, freeze frame. Now you see that nothing is happening at all. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to take the background, like everything around him, copy that and move it to the left. So it's basically the same part. Like here I'm just gonna move, or like here I'm gonna move this part just on top of it, slap it on top. Okay, dirty hole. So I'm gonna just use the mask tool. I could draw a mask myself, but for now I'm gonna use the ellipse tool. Shortcut is Q. And then I'm gonna draw a mask of whatever I want to copy paste, which is gonna be this part. Anything which is not him, really. And important, stay with the slider right where you took the freeze frame. This is important. If you're here, you're gonna have a problem because you might not see that right now, but because the upper layer is not moving right now. See, this is the mask I made, but the mask only fits exactly here. So stay with the slider here. Now I'm gonna move this entire thing, slap it on top of him. I'm gonna try to match as much as I can, like this path here should be matching. This here up here should be matching too. So right now you see the drone operator is gone. See, before after. But you see those ugly edges. We don't want those edges. So we click on our upper footage, upper layer, hit F. F stands for feather. Now we can feather the footage out. You see that those edges getting softer now. So we don't see it as much. If you go too hard, the feathering is like so hard that you basically see everything a little bit again, and we don't want this. So we go back to like 100 pixels or so. Perfect. When you're like up, down, back here, you don't even see that this here doesn't belong there because this here is copied there. This doesn't belong there, but nobody's going to see that, right? So when we look at the before after, worked. But now obviously when I play the footage, this is not going to move at all. It's just slapped on top. So that's not a solution, right? It's because it's just, you see that here, right? That's not what we want. What we do want though is that this here moves with our footage. And how am I going to do that? By tracking our footage. So I'm going to click here on the right side, tracker. If the tracker is not in here, just click on window, find the tracker, and then click on that. Anyways, this is the tracker, and now we have different track motions. What we're going to use for that is the track motion. This here is the tracking dot. If you want me to explain further how tracking works, I could do that in a different tutorial, not that one because that would just take too long. I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do with this tracker. So I have two tracking points now. When you pick the tracking points, it's just important that you pick tracking points which are going to be in frame for the entire shot where you need it. So now I'm going to track forward. So far so good. Sometimes I just like to slow down. Okay, looks good, looks good, looks good. I'm going to track until the entire drone pilot and his equipment is out of the shot. A few more seconds. Exciting. It's always a good thing when the tracking actually works till the end. Cool. That worked. But now we also have to go back and track backwards until the drone pilot is out of the shot. Cool. That's it. Now we have all this tracking data information. The next step is we're going to create a null object. A null object is basically doesn't do anything, but we can give it information or give it a purpose. So now with the tracking information, I can edit target, and here I'm going to select null 1, apply X and Y. So now I have this tracking information saved into this null object. You see this red thing? This is my tracking information in the null object. So I'm going to go back to the point where I made the freeze frame. In here, I'm going to use this parent pick width and parent it with the null object. That means that this freeze frame, which is not a video anymore, it's just a freeze frame, it's not moving. This is tracked to those 2 points here. So now when I go through the video, you see that this actually moves with my footage. And I also track the rotation, but because the camera is parallaxing, because it's rotating around them, you see this is like super jittery and stuff. I don't want this. I'm gonna go back to the null object and say rotation, please don't track the rotation anymore. Now I'm gonna watch it again. Okay, that looks better. But I see how it's scaling up and down. I don't want that either, so I'm gonna go and remove the scale animation. So now I only have the movement tracked. Now it actually looks very good. The beautiful thing is you don't need to overthink these things, because obviously the action is here. Aramis and I were fighting. This is where the action is. Okay, so nobody would even pay attention to this part. So this is just like a solution, you know. And like when you look at the before after, obviously you see, okay, the drone operator is in there. I don't want him in there, so that's why we did this. And this is what the scene looked like in the final product. Great. Now we're gonna do the same thing with this shot. It's a top-down shot. It's like the last scene where the airstrike happens. Again, not the drone operator is in the shot, but but our equipment, tripods, and these things. Obviously, that has nothing to do there, and it shouldn't be there. So we're gonna do the same thing. Let's check out the shot real quick. It's basically just the camera going down, so it's just the first, I don't know, 2 seconds or so, where I have to do some retouching. Again, Control D. Now I'm going to rush through it a little bit because it's the same process. Control D, so we have the same footage twice. I'm going to go to the very first frame because this is where we see the biggest amount of the stuff. Freeze frame. Click on it, right click, and time. Freeze frame. Now you see nothing's happening anymore. Now I'm going to use this ellipse tool, or what should I take? Should look the same, so I'm gonna use, well, technically what I could do is just use this part and put it over here. Oh, that doesn't look any that bad. So even if you don't feather the edges, it kind of looks good. This is a first good sign, but still we're gonna feather the edges, so it's gonna blend in, and now it looks like, okay, there was no manipulation. Eye off, before, after, there you go. And now we have to do the same thing, otherwise when we just play it, you see it's just gonna stay there. We don't want this, so we select our bottom layer, drag movement, need rotation and scale. Probably not going to need rotation, but still, we're still going to track it because it's better to have it and not need it. Because if we don't need it, we can just delete it. So it's always good to use something close to the actual object, but not too close because, oops. Because if it's out of the frame before the actual equipment, then we have a problem. So I'm going to use, I hope that's going to work. Okay, now we're going to play only forward and hope for the best. Done. Now, same thing, we're making a new layer, a null object, add a target, transfer this tracking information onto the null object. Okay. Apply X and Y, perfect. Now this red lines here, this is the null object, and parent our new layer, our freeze frame, to the null object, and it's going to move with it. Perfect, love it. So one little extra tip for drone footage, it's mostly not necessary because it doesn't have motion blur, because the shutter is usually very fast. But if your footage does have natural motion blur, what you want to do is click on this thing here that activates motion blur. Because if everything has motion blur, this here is motion blur, then the freeze frame also has to have motion blur. That's a different topic. For this particular shot, I don't need it because the shot is so slow. There is no motion blur, plus it's a drone, so drones usually shoot with a faster shutter speed, and I shot this scene in 60 frames per second, so the motion blur is pretty much not existing. So let's look at this again. That was the after. Let's look at the before. There is the equipment. Now it's gone. And again, don't spend too much time on these things, because in the end, this is where the action's happening, so that all that, nobody would pay attention. But that one worked out pretty well. So that's it for this Tutorial Thursday. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and like the video. More tutorials are coming about filmmaking and being an artist and stuff like that. If you are interested in watching this particular short film, I'm going to link it down in the description, and probably also like here. And thank you for watching, and have a good rest of your Tutorial Thursday. Titty. Have a good one, guys.